How did ancient humans create art? The first paintings explained. 40,000 years ago, a human being walked into a cave in what is now Indonesia. They held something in their hand that would change everything we know about our species. But it wasn't a weapon, it wasn't food, it was a dream, and they were about to paint it on a stone wall forever. That's the moment we're talking about today. Because the story of how humans invented art isn't just about pretty pictures on rocks. It's about the exact moment our ancestors started thinking about the future, about leaving messages for people they'd never meet, about saying, "I was here," to the universe itself. And somehow, 40 millennia later, we're still listening. So how did it actually happen? How did a creature whose main job was surviving the next day suddenly decide to spend hours mixing dirt and spit to create images on cave walls? Let's find out. First, you have to understand that ancient humans weren't stupid. This is important. They were just like us, neurologically speaking. Same brain size, same capabilities, but they lived in a world we can barely imagine. Every single day was about food and fire and staying alive. There was no room for art, or at least you'd think there wouldn't be. But something changed around 50,000 years ago, and we don't fully know what. Maybe it was a change in how their brains were wired. Maybe it was a sudden burst of creativity. Or maybe, and this is what most scientists think, someone just got bored one day and decided to experiment. Picture this, a person sitting in a cave waiting for the sun to set. They've got time to kill. They've got some charcoal from the fire. They've got ochre from the ground, a natural red pigment, and they've got the stone wall in front of them. So they dip their finger in the charcoal and they draw a line, just one line, and suddenly they realize something incredible. They can make images. They can create things that don't exist in nature. They can control what they put into the world. That single moment probably changed everything. Now, the paintings we find in places like the Chauvet cave in France or the caves in Indonesia are shockingly sophisticated. These aren't stick figures drawn by children. These are paintings of horses and rhinos and lions with real anatomical accuracy. The artists understood perspective. They understood how to use shadows to create depth. Some of these paintings show hunting scenes with movement and drama. How did ancient humans learn to do this without any formal training? The answer is brutal. Trial and error, repeated thousands of times. We're talking about people spending hours, days, even weeks perfecting a single image. And they did this with the most basic materials imaginable. They mixed charcoal with water and fat to create black paint. They ground ochre with stone to make red and yellow. They used their hands as stencils, blowing pigment around their fingers to create handprints. These weren't accidents. These were intentional artistic choices made by people who understood composition and color and technique. But here's what really blows people's minds. Some of these caves are completely inaccessible. You have to crawl through narrow passages in total darkness. So why would ancient humans hike deep underground in the pitch black just to paint something nobody would ever see? And that's where it gets strange. Scientists now believe these caves were sacred spaces, spiritual spaces. The paintings weren't meant to be seen by everyone. They were meant to be seen by shamans or spiritual leaders or people undergoing some kind of ritual transformation. The caves themselves were probably thought to be gateways to the spirit world. When you paint in a cave where sound echoes strangely and light barely penetrates, where the walls themselves seem to shift and move in firelight, you're not just creating art, you're creating an experience. You're trying to connect with something larger than yourself. But ancient humans didn't just paint, they sculpted too. We've found figurines that are 35,000 years old, little carvings made from ivory and bone and stone. Some of them are abstract, some of them are incredibly detailed. There's one famous carving called the Venus of Holyfels that are about the size of your thumb, carved from mammoth ivory. It's got exaggerated breasts and hips, and for a long time, archaeologists thought it was about fertility or sexuality. But now, many scientists think it might have been something different entirely. It might have been a toy, or a spiritual object, or just an experiment in three-dimensional form. The truth is, we don't know what these sculptures meant to the people who made them. We can only guess, but the fact that they made them at all tells us something profound. Ancient humans didn't just think about survival, they thought about meaning. They thought about beauty. They thought about the future. And that brings us to the biggest question. Why did they do this? Why did humans, at this point in our evolution, suddenly feel the need to create art? Some scientists think it was about practicing hunting. If you can draw a deer on a cave wall, maybe you're mentally rehearsing the hunt. It's like visualization training. But that doesn't explain the hand stencils. What are you rehearsing when you blow pigment around your hand? No, the most likely explanation is something simpler and more profound. Art was communication. Art was a way to say things that words couldn't say. A painting of a hunt isn't just a visual record. It's a story, it's experience, it's emotion translated into pigment and stone. And when you leave that painting in a cave where others will find it, you're reaching across time. You're speaking to the future. Ancient humans created art because they were human, because somewhere in their brains, in that same place that makes us human right now, was the need to create meaning, to leave something behind, to say, I existed, I thought, I dreamed, I mattered. And 40,000 years later, we stand in those caves and we see those handprints and those animal paintings, and we understand exactly what they meant. We understand because we're driven by the same thing. We're still trying to leave our mark. We're still trying to create meaning in an indifferent universe. That's how ancient humans invented art, not because they suddenly became intelligent, but because they finally had the luxury to ask themselves, what does it mean to be alive? And once you ask that question, you have to create. You have no choice. You have to paint. You have to sculpt. You have to leave something behind. If you want to know more about how ancient humans thought and created and survived, check out the other videos on this channel, because every question we ask about our ancestors is really a question about ourselves. Thanks for watching.